Now, the presidency says President Cyril Ramaphosa has requested Deputy President David Mabuza to remain in his role until such a time the modalities of his departure and transition have been finalized. In a brief response to SABC News, presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya confirmed that Mabuza expressed his desire to step down from his position. This followed the outcome of the governing party's leadership elections in December of 2022. Mabuza confirmed he has resigned as Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa in an address at his brother's burial service in Mpumalanga. He had declined a nomination from the floor at the ANC 55th National Conference in December, and Paul Mashatile was elected as the Deputy President of the party. Mabuza was also not present at the party's NEC Lekgotla and Cabinet Lekgotla. Staying with developments on the story, now on the agenda we speak to political analyst Professor Bheki Mngomezulu for his take on Deputy President David Mabuza's resignation as the Deputy President of the country. We also ask you to be a part of this discussion as we continue to track developments in the story by giving us a call on the number that will be on your screen shortly, as well as on our social media platforms. Professor Mngomezulu, thank you so much for your time this morning here on the agenda. So what do you make of where Mabuza chose to announce his resignation, and was this the right time for him to resign?
Thank you very much, Mko, and good morning to your viewers. I think as a point of departure, I must say that what happened over the weekend was unprecedented. We know that the Deputy President of the country, that is the second highest ranking position in the country after the President. So ordinarily, if the Deputy President is going to vacate office, that has to be done in a smooth manner. So first of all, I don't think it was right for the Deputy President to be the one making the announcement, because it is the prerogative of the President. And then secondly, the venue that was used to make that announcement the correct one. So on both counts, I don't think that the Deputy President did the right thing. Ordinarily, you would expect him to tender his resignation to the President, as should be the case. Then the President will accept that particular resignation, work out all the logistical arrangements, and then convene a press briefing whereby he informs the nation that his second in command has opted to exit the stage, as it were, and then all the other processes would follow. So to answer your question correctly, I don't think that the platform was the right one, and I don't think that the announcement should have been made by him, but by the President in his right as a sitting President at the moment.
Right, so Prof, I know so much has been said about David Mabuza's political career. Just to remind our viewers, for the benefit of our viewers, take us through his political life.
David Mabuza is one of the seasoned politicians in the ANC. He has served in Mpumalanga as a province, occupying different positions, at one point being the MEC for Agriculture, and then, of course, being the chairperson of the ANC in Mpumalanga, and then being the premier of Mpumalanga. So he has held a number of positions, including being a member of the NEC. So there is no doubt about his political career, that he has done a sterling job. You had asked the question earlier on if the timing was right. I think this boils down to the fallacy that has been made popular to say there is the so-called two centers of power. That if you are the president of the country, and then in an elective conference, somebody else is elected to be the president of the party, then you must immediately vacate office to give way to that person. The same narrative also came in where soon after Paul Mashatile emerged December conference of the ANC. Some were saying that now that Paul Mashatile is the deputy president of the party, therefore it means that David Mabuza should resign, which in my view is totally wrong, because you can continue to be the deputy president of the country while Paul Mashatile continues to occupy his position as the deputy president of the party, because in any case, whatever decisions that are translated into government legislation, they are discussed at Luthuli House. So it's not as if these people will be reading from different scripts, one singing a song from the church, the other one singing a song from the Presbyterian. It doesn't work like that. These are all members of the ANC. These are all members of the NEC. These are the members who discuss issues before they are shared with the public. So the notion of two centers of power is in fact non-existent. It's political rhetoric that has been popularized by people for certain reasons. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that, in fact, this situation we find ourselves in should have arisen. It's not supposed to have happened if people understood, one, the constitution of the country, and two, the constitution of the ANC.
And I need to pick up on this important point you make around the now so-called two centers of power in the party. What does this mean of the conversations around rejuvenation and renewal for the party?
That is political rhetoric. On paper, it looks nice, and in fact, it's something that is supposed to be preached by all politicians and not just the leadership of the ANC. So party rejuvenation is something that is supposed to have happened a long time ago, because unless you rejuvenate the party, you run the risk of losing your position as the governing party. So that one, there is no debate about it. But it's only when it comes, of course, putting that thought into action. There is very little that is happening at the moment. For instance, some people are already saying that now that the president enjoys enough support in the NEC, he enjoys enough support in the NWC, that is the National Working Committee. Therefore, he must make sure that he gets rid of everyone who stands on his way. That is not part of rejuvenating the party, because we cannot be building the party on the one hand and then you dismantle the party on the other hand. It doesn't make sense. There is no logic in that. So what I think is supposed to be happening is that you must make sure that all the different factions are brought together. All people who hold different views are made to see the bigger picture, that is the future of the ANC as the governing party. That is where the focus should be. These personal differences should not be given a space, because the moment you do that, you are therefore undoing the good job of rebuilding the party. So I think the president now has a great opportunity to prove to the nation and to the world that he is determined to rebuild the organization. And the way he will do it is when he does this cabinet reshuffling. He mustn't be using the power that he has to purge others, as it were. Instead, he must be using the powers that he has to make sure and demonstrate to everyone that he's determined to rebuild the party. So I think that is what the president is supposed to focus on. This issue of the one issue that needs to be attended to in a very sober manner, so that it doesn't cause further divisions within the organization, given the fact that I don't think the deputy president resigned voluntarily. There was noise coming from all directions that because Paul Mashatile is now the deputy president of the party, then David Mabuza must give way. I don't think it is the correct way to do things and to rebuild the party.
Okay, Prof, can I just ask that we pause it here for now, because I have also invited the callers to just call in and also just give us their take on this issue. Just pause it there while we bridge this with a call. Maharaj joins us from KZN. Maharaj, thank you so much for calling us this hour on the agenda. What's on your mind?
Yeah, talking about the deputy president.
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, he shouldn't announce his resignation at the funeral. Secondly, he is too embarrassed because he was not nominated. He was nominated on the floor, from the floor. Thirdly, he's got a lot of pending cases like murder, bribery, corruption. Although nothing has been proven, I feel he's very scared of the outcome of those investigations.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, sure. That's Maharaj joining us there from KZN. So just to also pick up on that, Prof, as we continue our conversation, let's speak about his track record in dealing with scandal in his political career. What do you make of that?
David Mabuza is one politician I respect. Because he has a way of doing things which would not make him look bad. He has a way of understanding that whatever you do today will come back to haunt you. So looking at things from that front, then he's one person who would want to do things and make sure that, of course, he covers his back, as it were, to the extent that you recall that when he was voted in as the deputy president of the party, he delayed being sworn in. And his argument was that because I'm being implicated in some wrongdoing, let all the processes unfold. Once I'm cleared, only then can I be sworn in as the deputy president of the country. And he did that deliberately because he wanted to demonstrate that what people are saying about him is far from the truth as far as is concerned, because he said, okay, if the Integrity Commission has something to say, allow him or afford them that space to do what they're supposed to do. And then if anyone from the NPA or any of the law enforcement agencies has a case against me, allow them to do that. Once they are done, only then will I be sworn in. And that's exactly what happened. He was cleared of all the wrongdoings, and then only then was he sworn in as a deputy president. So even now, I understand that there are people who are implicating him in a number of wrongdoings. The point is, can you prove it? If you can't prove it, then it means it's not there. That is how the law works, because I can accuse you of something unless I'm able to put something on the table to confirm what I'm saying. It will remain an allegation, and it will be thrown out of court because there is no evidence to back it up with. So that is the situation we find ourselves in. We may have issues again soon to be former deputy president, but unless we're able to put facts on the table, then he will be found wanting and he will be cleared, and therefore he will be assumed as someone who was never involved in any corrupt activities until such time that we are able to prove otherwise.
Right, let's talk about his future in the ruling party. What does it look like? Is there still a future to even talk about?
That's a very important question, Mko. Ordinarily, when you are occupying a senior position in an organization, the moment you relinquish that that position, it's not usually easier for you to then occupy a lower position. It's like being the principal of a school today, and then tomorrow you are asked to take care of grade R. So that is a serious demotion. That is how other politicians have looked at this issue, and it has been happening during the reign of former President Thabo Mbeki. You might have seen a number of people soon after losing their ministerial positions, they exited the stage. They didn't want to become ordinary members of parliament, which is wrong, by the way, because when we are elected, we are not elected to be a minister, nor to be an MEC in the case of a provincial government. You are elected to be a member of parliament. Then the prerogative of the president, as per Section 84, is to decide amongst members of parliament who should form part of his or her cabinet. And then at provincial level, that prerogative lies with the premier. But unfortunately, our leaders, once they lose senior positions, they just decide to leave the stage, as it were. So in this case, to answer your question, I don't foresee a situation whereby David Mabuza would be an ordinary member of parliament, although there would be nothing wrong with him doing that. But I don't see it happening. So it means that he will cease to be a member of parliament, and then, of course, he will no longer be the deputy president. Can use him then is to involve him in SADC activities, involve him in AU activities, because as a senior leader of the party, he is knowledgeable. There is no doubt about that. So he can still be an asset even outside of the borders of South Africa. So I think that that is the role I think he can play, not just for him to be an ordinary member of parliament, because I don't think that will sit down well with him and those who are supporting him.
I'm keen to take a bite on the conversation of how this transition will now move, Prof. But please just park it there for me, because I need to take Mevana from the Free State, who joins us now as a caller. Mevana, thank you so much for taking the time to call us. What's on your mind about this issue? Mevana? Yes?
I think that the deputy president is under pressure. Remember, this guy was definitely one of the Premier's League. And then all of his members, or all of his group members, to mention just a few, Esma Khashule and the former Premier of the Northwest, they are also putting pressure on him in terms of asking him as to what is it that he's doing, to destabilize the government. But unfortunately, there is nothing better that he can do. And the other fact, I think, is that given the result that he refused to be nominated, he knew for sure that the pressure that he was going through ain't going to work for him. That is why I think that the deputy president is intending to resign. And it was not his platform to announce that, at his brother's funeral. What happened to Ubuntu? I'd like to ask him as to why does he have to do that at the funeral of his brother? Thank you very much.
Mevama there in the Free State. So, Prof, as we continue with this conversation, I said we're just going to pick up on the transition itself and, how it's likely to go, seeing that also Paul Mashatile has been elected the new ANC deputy president and also appointed deputy president of the country. How is this transition going to work and what can we expect from him?
Ordinarily, this shouldn't be a problem, though. These are members of the ANC, and not just ordinary members, senior members of the ANC. Paul Mashatile, in his own right, is a politician in his own right, and has done a lot of work for the ANC. So it's not as if he's a newcomer. He's not a new kid on the block, as people would say. So under normal circumstances, then we'll expect the two to spend quality time together, discussing some issues which fall within the purview of the deputy president as per the decision of the president, because constitutionally the deputy president takes orders from his senior, in this case the president. So now what is supposed to happen is that both Paul Mashatile and David Mabuza have to sit down, and then David Mabuza will tell him, okay, these are the issues that were on my table. These are the ones that have been concluded. These are the ones that are pending, that still need to be acted upon. And then on the basis of that, Paul Mashatile would know where to start so that it doesn't reinvent the wheel. There are certain things which David Mabuza might have done and they didn't lead him to where he wanted to go. And then he has to share all of that with Paul Mashatile so that he doesn't commit the same mistakes. If there are success stories, then of course the deputy president has to share that with Paul Mashatile as well, so that he can retain that and then of course take the organization forward. So there are a lot of conversations that are supposed to happen as part of the handover. And in fact, even both in the public and the private sector, if a new incumbent ascends the stage, there is always a handover. And that handover includes both the good and the bad. And then, of course, some gray areas. You share all of that information so that the incoming person will have a full picture and then make his or her own determination as to how. I think that is what is supposed to happen. Then from the side of the president, of course, the one thing that he needs to do, once he's done all the logistical issues within his office, he will then have to inform the nation, because we have not been informed yet. What we had was said by Deputy President David Mabuza amounts to hearsay, because the president, the commander-in-chief, has not yet told the nation that my second in command has relinquished his office or his position, and now there's a vacancy, someone else will be ascending to that position. So at the moment, we're waiting for the president to do that. He hasn't done it yet.
And speaking of the president, Prof, I know there's already talks about looming cabinet reshuffles, and it seems like conversations are now moving towards of not if it will happen, but when it happens. Are we likely to see a cabinet reshuffle that will be a positive one?
It depends on the leadership prowess of the president, because Section 84 affords him that right to decide who to include in his cabinet and to who. Then I think the situation here is that you have people like Honorable Mbalola, who has in fact made it publicly that in his current position, he is going to look at some of his colleagues and identify those who are sleeping in the job. I'm using his words, those who are sleeping in the job, and then those, of course, who are not towing the line, in other words, not respecting the decisions of the NEC, of the ANC, and he will inform the president who he must retain and who he must get rid of. That was an unwelcome statement by Mbalola, because he elevated himself to the status beyond that of the president. It's now as if the president will take a cue from Mbalola, which shouldn't be the case. The president is the most senior person in the country constitutionally. So he has to be afforded an opportunity to make his own decisions, which must be informed by reality and rationality. And in fact, you normally have, after the elective conference, we have the appointment of NEC members. After that, we have the appointment of NWC members. Then we have an ANC Lekgotla. Then we have a cabinet Lekgotla. That is where negotiations take place. There's all the right to decide who to bring in and who to discard it. It doesn't take a unilateral decision. He has to bring everybody on board and explain to them, this is my thinking, these are the reasons, and then it's a collective decision. But then, of course, the buck stops with the president because he's the one who's supposed to make the announcement. So in this case, I don't see any difference. So it's up to him then to decide how he wants to use the power that has been given to him. Does he want to further divide the organization, or does he want to take the organization forward? That is one thing. Number two, does he want to retain people just because they happen to be in his corner, or does he have to bring people with the requisite skills and knowledge to take this country out of its current number of issues that are of concern? Top on the list is this load shedding. Do you have the right people in the right positions? If the answer is yes, how come we have load shedding for such a long time? And then you look at the state-owned enterprises. Do we have the right people there? So those are the kinds of questions that should inform the president's decision. So in making his decision, that is what he needs to do. Take the country into confidence, and then, of course, put the country first, then the party second, and then the personalities last. If you get the order wrong and focus on personalities first, the ANC second, then the country last, then we'll have lost the battle even before it starts.
All right, I'm going to come back to you, Prof, again, so we can wrap the conversation up. I just need to take Moreni, who joins us now from the capital city. Moreni, thank you so much for your call. What's on your mind?
How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. And yourself?
I'm good. You know, with regards to Mabuza, there are things that we need to understand. The ticket that he used to get to his position as a deputy president of the ANC and the country, it was not done via ANC branches, if I may say. The reason why I'm saying that is it was because of he got that position via king-making the president. The moment when he got to that position, he failed as a member of the ANC or as a deputy president of the ANC to go back to the ground and try to win the majority of the branches. So for him, it's like they caught him with a surprise in a conference when he saw that he doesn't have support. And he could not stay on that position. He could not stay on that position because of he knows that he doesn't have support within the ANC structure. So currently, that's why he has decided to resign. And the way he resigned, you cannot, as a deputy president, you cannot resign from the funeral. He was supposed to let his master to do it properly. He was rushing to go. I think he's rushing to go, according to me. And as a president of the country, he has been absent throughout since when he was a deputy president of the country. I don't know any project or any activities that he has done so far since he was inaugurated as a deputy president. He was very silent, and he was losing the ground every day because of his silence. And I think one thing that we can remember him with is his trip from South Africa to Russia, and he spent some 3 weeks or 4 weeks there. And then we have to think about Mabuza when it comes to the leadership of the ANC and the country. I think we have a lot to think about him when he was a Mpumalanga Premier than as a deputy president currently. Because as a deputy president, he has done nothing according to me. Thank you very much.
All right, and let's bring in Prof again. So, Prof, you've heard the caller there. I don't know if you feel the same way, but was this a case of let me just resign before I'm actually pushed out? Is that how you feel it was?
No, the writing was on the wall. Morem is right. There was pressure that was looming because of this fallacy that we referred to earlier on, the so-called two centers of power. So it was almost a foregone conclusion that immediately after Paul Mashatile emerged victorious in December, there was no way that David Mabuza would have remained in office, although constitutionally there was nothing stopping him from remaining the president at the 2024. Until such time, of course, that the president removed him, because the president can always do that anytime without breaking any law. Although you recall also that There was a time when former President Jacob Zuma did a cabinet reshuffle, and then some people, out of excitement, took the matter to court. And then for some reason, whether the judge was in fact playing in the gallery, I'm not sure. The judge agreed that the president is to explain himself. And then, of course, I don't know if Section 84 had changed. That is a story for another day. But the reality of the matter is that Deputy President David Mabuza did not resign voluntarily. There was pressure that was looming, and he knew that he doesn't enjoy the kind of support that he has enjoyed before. Part of the reason, of course, can go back to 2017 at that elective conference, because you recall that, truth be told, President Cyril Ramaphosa emerged victorious in 2017 was mainly because of the decisions that were taken by David Mabuza when he came up with the so-called unity vote. And then at the 11th hour, he handed the presidency to President Ramaphosa on a silver platter. So in a way, the president owes David Mabuza for the position that he holds. So there was no way that the president would have removed him. But of course, the president does not act alone. There are people who are surrounding him, some of whom have different ideas to what the president has, and therefore they will influence some of the things that it does. You recall also that on 21 November, the president was prepared to vacate office, but he was convinced by those who are surrounding him and said, no, Chief, you can't do that. And then they brought in all the chairpersons of the organization in the 9 provinces. And then you remember also that one Premier, Oscar Mabuyane, was on public saying that our province, the one to convince the president not to resign, which confirms that indeed the president had taken a decision. So the point I'm making, Mko, is that the president might be having good ideas, but the problem is that he's surrounded by people who think differently. And unfortunately, he also owes his continued stay in office to those people. If he doesn't respect them, if he doesn't listen to what they say, they may just recall him like they did with Mbeki, like they did with Zuma. So he knows that. So therefore, I would say that he's not 100% himself. Some of the decisions are outside of his purview, even though he is the president of the country. But there are people who are calling the shots, as it were, directly or indirectly.
Prof, now, just a quick one before I let you go. I know we're stepping into a very busy weekend. We're seeing the State of the Nation also coming up. What are we likely to see? Because we know that the EFF has already said they will not be addressed by President Cyril Ramaphosa. What do you make of such utterances?
They are concerning because we've been there where the State of the Nation address was disrupted. People saying that, that is the EFF saying that we cannot be addressed by a constitutional delinquent. We might see a repeat of that happening on the 9th of Feb, whereby they are going to say you still have the Phala matter to answer to. So on which grounds are you then addressing us as members of parliament, and on which grounds are you addressing the nation? So you might see a repeat of that. But the reality of the matter is, if eventually calm prevails, and the president has to address the nation, I've already written a piece on that, saying that if the president is honest, the first thing he needs to do before he makes his promises is to reflect on the promises he made in his last SONA and say, these are the 5 points that I had, because there were 5 points that he had made. These are the 5 points that I had made. This is how I've delivered on them. These are the reasons why I failed to deliver on A, B, and C, and this is how I plan to do things differently this time around. That will be president has failed, or the country or the government has failed. He must be bold enough to say, we've failed on this one, and these are the reasons. But now the situation is different. There is no longer COVID, which has been used as a scapegoat. But then, of course, the war on the Ukraine is still continuing, which is a second scapegoat. People will be using that. But then besides that, we look at the state of our country now, and then we ask ourselves, are we doing better now than we did 5 years ago? Those are the kinds of questions that the president needs to look into. And I'm glad that the ANC Lekgotla is gone, the cabinet Lekgotla is gone. So by now, the president would have received input from all his colleagues, so that whatever he pronounces on the 9th will be basically representative of the view of the collective, as opposed to him just taking a unilateral decision on matters. It will be part of the ANC's decision.
Right, Professor Bheki Mngomezulu, thank you ever so much for those comprehensive insights there on Zoom for us.